I'm 29, female, and my former best friend, let's call her Elle, is 30, female. We'd been close for almost a decade. We met in college when we both showed up to a volunteer event hungover. Ended up being paired together and realized we had the same sarcastic humor. That turned into late night dinner runs, study sessions that were more gossip than work, and those long walks you take with friends where you imagine your whole lives. We were inseparable through most of our 20s. Back then, we were broke students who couldn't afford much. We would scrape together change for fast food, split one bottle of cheap wine, and laugh about how one day we'd both make it. Over time, I got into a career that paid more steadily than hers, and with that came a shift I did not really notice until much later. I was usually the one footing the bill. Dinners out, Ubers, vacation hotels, even small stuff like movie tickets. 9 times out of 10, I paid. But I never thought of it as an issue. To me, that was part of friendship. Sometimes one person is in a better position and you support each other. And she was there for me emotionally in ways money couldn't cover, so I thought it balanced out. This year, I got laid off. It was one of those sudden corporate decisions, a round of budget cuts, whole departments downsized overnight. I was not singled out, but it still felt like a punch in the gut. One day I had a steady job and health insurance, and the next I was packing a cardboard box with my desk plant and wondering how I'd pay rent. I felt embarrassed and small. I didn't tell Elle right away, honestly. I did not tell many people. My parents knew, a couple of close colleagues knew, but that was it. Part of me thought it would just be a temporary setback and I'd look silly for making a big announcement. Another part of me just didn't want to be pitied. I figured I'd hold off until I had better news. In the meantime, I cut back on spending. No more treat yourself weekends. No more picking up the check automatically. I suggested cheaper hangouts, walks, Netflix nights, cooking at home. I thought it would be fine. I did not realize how much our friendship had been built around me spending money until I stopped doing it. Almost immediately, I felt a shift. Elle started being harder to reach. She would cancel plans with vague excuses, take hours or days to reply to a text, or just leave me on read. I tried not to overthink it. People get busy. But then I started hearing little things through mutual friends. Apparently, she'd been saying I was bringing her down. She called me negative energy. She said being around me felt like work. That stung, because I thought I'd been handling my situation with as much grace as I could. I was not unloading on her or begging for help. If anything, I was trying too hard to act normal. The last few times I saw her, the vibe was unbearable. She seemed irritated just by me existing. She scrolled on her phone while I was talking, sighed a lot, and made it clear she'd rather be somewhere else. And then, without warning, she stopped responding altogether. No fight, no explanation, just gone. That hurt more than the layoff. I had pictured her as someone who would be in my life forever. To realize our friendship could just end because I was not paying for everything anymore made me question if she ever valued me beyond what I provided. Here's where it gets ironic. Within a few weeks of being laid off, I landed a new job, and not just any job, Elle's dream job. She had talked about this company for years. Every time we had a conversation about careers, she brought it up. She stalked their LinkedIn page, fantasized about what role she'd have, even had a Pinterest board of outfits she'd wear if she ever worked there. To her, it was the pinnacle. When I got the offer, I did not tell her. At that point, we weren't talking. Plus, it felt weird to announce something she'd been dreaming about when she had cut me off. I figured maybe if we patched things up, I'd explain then. Fast forward about a month into my new role, I was settling in, starting to lead projects. One morning, I walked into a conference room, set up my laptop, and got ready for a kickoff meeting. The door opened a minute later, and in walked Elle. She had just been hired. Her face, when she saw me, was something I'll never forget. She froze in the doorway like she'd seen a ghost. Meanwhile, I had to act calm and professional because a whole team of people was watching. I introduced myself as the project manager, went through the agenda, and carried on like nothing was unusual. Inside, my heart was pounding. After that, she avoided me completely. She wouldn't look me in the eye, kept every interaction as short and professional as possible, and treated me like a stranger. Through the grapevine, I heard she was humiliated. She apparently told people I had blindsided her, that I took her dream job behind her back, that I made her look foolish. The truth is, I applied the normal way, interviewed, got hired because I was qualified. I did not even know she had applied until that morning when she walked into the room. There was no scheme, no betrayal, just bad timing and maybe karma in some twisted way. But what's been eating at me is the bigger picture. I keep replaying everything in my head. Should I have told her sooner about being laid off? Should I have swallowed my pride and admitted it right away? Maybe then she wouldn't have thought I was draining her energy. Maybe she would have understood why I was not spending money. Maybe she wouldn't have felt blindsided about the new job. On the other hand, a real friend wouldn't have ghosted me just because I stopped paying for things. A real friend wouldn't have gone around telling people I was a drag without even having a conversation with me. A real friend wouldn't see my success as a betrayal. Working with her now is unbearably awkward. She technically reports to me for this project, so I have to stay professional and keep things moving. I've been polite and neutral, but it's tense. She still won't acknowledge me beyond what's necessary. Our mutual friends are split down the middle. Some think she was completely out of line, and others say I should have been more open with her about my struggles. Part of me still grieves the friendship. 10 years is a long time. We grew up together. She knew things about me no one else does, and yet, looking back, I see how one-sided it really was. I was pouring into her financially and emotionally, and the second I couldn't anymore, she labeled me as toxic and cut me off. So here I am, trying to focus on my work while navigating this mess of awkwardness and resentment. I do not miss paying for dinners and trips. I miss the friend I thought I had. But maybe that person never really existed. So AITA for not telling my best friend I lost my job and then ended up as her project manager at the company she's always dreamed of working at. Update 1. It's been a few months now, and honestly, it's been one of the most surreal periods of my life. At first, she avoided me completely. She wouldn't make eye contact. She wouldn't sit near me in meetings. She answered questions with the shortest responses possible. I kept everything professional because I did not want to give anyone in the office the sense that there was drama. But you could cut the tension with a knife. People noticed something was off, though no one said anything directly. After a couple of weeks, the gossip started. I heard through a coworker that she had told people she was blindsided, that I had hidden my new job from her on purpose to make her look small. She apparently left out the part where she ghosted me before I even had the role. It was strange hearing a warped version of the story circulate at work, but I bit my tongue. I knew if I defended myself too much, it would only add fuel to the fire. The project itself was difficult because I had to rely on her for certain deliverables. She was not incompetent, she's actually talented, but she was clearly trying to minimize her interactions with me. She would send things late or drop files into a shared folder with no message, just so she did not have to email me directly. It was like managing a ghost. It slowed the project down, but I worked around it. What surprised me was how much it did not bother me after a while. At first, I was heartbroken all over again, realizing how little I mattered to someone I had called my best friend for years. But once I got used to her silence, it became freeing. I did not have to wonder anymore. I did not have to overanalyze texts or replay conversations. She had shown me exactly where I stood. Our mutual friends did not make things easier. A few reached out to say she was upset, that she felt I had betrayed her by keeping my layoff and new job a secret. One even said she felt like I had stolen her moment because she had been working so hard to get into the company, and then I just appeared in a leadership role. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at that one. I hadn't stolen anything. I applied, interviewed, and got hired like anyone else. If anything, the irony was just bad luck for her. Some friends have quietly distanced themselves from her. Others have distanced themselves from me. It's like a divorce where the friend group splits down the middle. Honestly, I do not have the energy to chase anyone. If people want to believe I'm some villain for not announcing my layoff to the world, that's on them. The wildest part came a month ago when she finally had to present in a meeting that I was running. She gave her update while looking at the wall behind me instead of at me or the rest of the team. When she finished, she sat down quickly, like she couldn't wait to get out of the spotlight. It hit me in that moment how much power she had given the situation. All she had to do was treat me like any other coworker. Instead, she turned it into this cold war that only makes her look unprofessional. On my side, I've tried to take the high road. I haven't bad-mouthed her to colleagues. I haven't shared the full backstory, unless someone directly asked, and even then I kept it vague. I do not want to be the person who turns work into drama. I just want to do my job. Looking back now with some distance, I see our friendship for what it really was. When I had money to spend, she was happy to be around. When I pulled back, she labeled me as draining. When I bounced back, she saw me as competition. None of that has anything to do with friendship. That's about what I provided, not who I was. It still hurts in quiet moments. I'll think about trips we took, nights we stayed up talking until sunrise. Little inside jokes that only we understood. 10 years is a long time to throw away. But I've also realized I was holding on to the idea of her, not the reality. The reality is she left the second I was not useful. That's not a best friend. The project is wrapping up soon, and honestly, I'm relieved. I don't know what will happen next. We still have to coexist at the company. And I can't avoid her forever, but the shock has worn off. The grief has dulled. Now it just feels like working alongside any other colleague I do not particularly like. I guess my question now is, how do I handle the mutual friends who still bring it up? And some of them keep telling me I should reach out to her, apologize, or be the bigger person. But I feel like I already have been by keeping it professional and not dragging her name through the mud. At the same time, I don't want to come across as cold or unforgiving. Update 2. I did not think I'd be posting again, but things took a turn I never expected. When I wrote my last update, the project was wrapping up, and I thought the awkwardness with Elle would fade into background noise. I was ready to move on, but then a few things happened that made me realize the story was not over. First, Elle started undermining me at work. It was not blatant at first. She would make small comments in meetings that hinted I was unprepared. Or she'd forget to loop me in on emails. At first, I assumed it was just oversights, but then I noticed a pattern. Every mistake or gap somehow painted me in a bad light. I'd fix it quietly and move on, but it kept happening. Then came the kicker. A senior manager pulled me aside after a meeting and asked if everything was okay between me and Elle. I said yes, trying to play it off. He gave me a look like he did not quite buy it and said he'd heard there was tension. That's when I realized she was not just freezing me out, she was planting seeds with other people. Around that time, a mutual friend outside of work sent me screenshots of texts Elle had sent to a group chat. She called me manipulative, said I had strategically hidden my job loss and swooped into her dream company to lord it over her. She even accused me of only befriending her all those years because I knew I'd end up above her one day. It was so unhinged, it almost made me laugh, but mostly it made me sad. She was rewriting history in real time, and people were eating it up. The breaking point came during a client presentation. I was leading it, and Elle was supposed to provide some critical data. She sent me the wrong file, which made me look unprepared in front of the client. I managed to pivot and recover, but after the meeting, I double-checked the file. The correct one had been finalized days earlier. She had deliberately sent me the wrong version. That was the moment I realized this was not just awkwardness anymore. She was actively sabotaging me. I documented everything, dates, emails, the wrong file, even little comments she'd made in meetings. I did not want to throw accusations without proof. Once I had enough, I went to HR. I hated doing it, but I couldn't risk my career over a grudge from a friendship that should have ended the day she ghosted me. HR took it seriously. They interviewed people, looked at the email trail, and eventually called me back to confirm they found concerning behavior. I do not know the exact details of what they told her, but she was pulled off my project immediately. Within a few weeks, word spread quietly that she was no longer with the company. I wish I could say I felt triumphant. In reality, I felt numb. This was someone I had once considered family. It did not feel like winning. It felt like losing in a way I can't fully explain. The fallout has been messy. Mutual friends are divided again. Some think I was justified. Others accuse me of ruining her career. I've stopped explaining myself. At the end of the day, she made her choices. I did not tell her to ghost me when I lost my job. I did not tell her to talk behind my back, sabotage me at work, or rewrite our entire friendship as some conspiracy. I've learned a lot through this, mainly that some people do not want you to succeed if they're not succeeding too. They're fine with you as long as you're lifting them up, but the moment you stand on your own, they resent it. That realization hurts, but it's freeing too. Do I miss her? Weirdly, yes. Or maybe I miss who I thought she was, but I also know I can never go back. You can forgive a lot in a friendship, but not someone trying to ruin your career. Update 3. I thought the story was over when Elle was fired, but apparently it was just the end of one chapter. What's happened since then has been stranger than anything I could have predicted, and I've had a lot of time to reflect on whether I'm really the villain she paints me to be. After HR confirmed she was no longer with the company, I expected things to die down. In my head, I pictured a clean break. She'd moved on. I'd moved on. That would be the end. Instead, her departure set off a whole ripple effect I did not see coming. The first wave hit through mutual friends. Some were furious with me. They accused me of being cold, calculating, even power hungry. One friend said I'd waited for the perfect chance to humiliate her by not warning her I was working there. Another said I could have handled things privately instead of going to HR. The problem is they do not know the whole story. They don't know about the wrong file she gave me on purpose or the subtle sabotage that could have tanked my credibility. I was not about to hand over my HR notes just to defend myself in a group chat. So I let people think what they wanted. If they saw me as the villain, so be it. But it was painful to realize how quickly some friendships can sour when you do not control the narrative. The second wave came at work. Her exit sparked quiet whispers in the office. No one said her name, but people asked careful questions like whether I was okay or if I needed support. I realized word had spread enough that people connected the dots. For a while, I felt paranoid, like everyone was watching me to see if I'd crack, but then slowly the attention faded. Corporate life is busy, new projects came, new people arrived, and drama gets recycled. I leaned into the work and tried to forget. But Elle was not done with me. A few weeks after she left, I got a long email from her. It was half apology, half accusation. She said she was sorry things ended the way they did, but also blamed me for taking everything from her. She said I had embarrassed her, cost her her job, and destroyed a decade-long friendship. She even wrote that she hoped I was happy sitting in an office built on betrayal. I stared at the email for a long time before deleting it. I did not reply. That silence drove her into the third wave. The public smear campaign. She started posting vague messages on social media about fake friends who use you until they can replace you. She never mentioned my name, but the overlap in our friend group meant people knew exactly who she meant. Screenshots made their way to me within hours of her posting. At first I rolled my eyes, but then I started feeling a little sick. The posts weren't just bitter, they were obsessive. She was narrating our fallout like it was some kind of betrayal novel, where she was the tragic heroine and I was the villain. Around this time, a mutual friend invited me to coffee and admitted that Elle had been privately telling people I manipulated my way into the company, using her as inspiration bait. She told people I had studied her career goals just so I could beat her to them. I couldn't even be angry. It was too absurd. But the scary part was how believable it sounded to people who already wanted a simple, dramatic story. Villains make sense. Complicated friendships do not. I'll be honest, there were nights where I questioned myself. Was I selfish for keeping my layoff private? Was I a bad friend for not telling her about the job right away? Should I have tried harder to save the friendship before HR got involved? The thing about being painted as the villain is part of you starts believing it. But then I remembered the reality. I remembered her cutting me off because I stopped paying for things. I remembered her calling me draining behind my back. I remembered opening that wrong file in front of a client and feeling my stomach drop when I realized she set me up. I remembered her ghosting me before I even had the chance to tell her anything. Those aren't the actions of a friend. They're the actions of someone who was only there for the perks. The final wave came last month. Out of nowhere, she texted me. Not an apology this time, but a proposition. She said she was ready to move past the drama and wanted to grab lunch to talk things through. The tone was almost casual, like nothing had happened. I sat staring at my phone, wondering what kind of mental gymnastics it takes to sabotage someone, smear them publicly, accuse them of betrayal, and then text them like we could just reset. I did not respond for 2 days, and when I finally did, all I said was, I do not think that's a good idea. I wish you well. That was it. No closure speech, no rehashing, just a boundary. Her reaction was explosive. Within hours, mutual friends started texting me, asking what I'd said to her. Apparently, she went off in the group chat about how I'd slammed the door in her face and refused to let her heal. Once again, I was the villain in her version. At this point, I've stopped trying to control the narrative. People who believe her version will keep believing it. People who know me will see the truth eventually. The difference now is I do not feel the need to prove myself anymore. Here's the unexpected part. I feel lighter. Losing her, losing the friends who sided with her, even dealing with the gossip, it all stripped my life down to something more real. The people left are the ones who do not care about drama or who pays the bill. They're the ones who show up without needing a transaction. I've also realized how close I came to letting her destroy my career. If I hadn't gone to HR when I did, if I had tried to protect her instead of protecting myself, I might have been the one out of a job. That's the hardest pill to swallow. She would have watched me burn if it meant she could win. But here's where I'm at now. Elle is out of my life for good. Our mutual friends are split. Some still hang on to her, some have drifted towards me, and some are keeping their distance from both of us. At work, things have stabilized. I'm doing well, moving up, focusing on my own growth. Every once in a while, someone will bring her up and I'll just shrug. I don't feel anger anymore, just a kind of distant sadness for what I thought we had. The strange part is I sometimes wonder if I should feel guilty. Not for going to HR, she earned that herself, but guilty for being the one who landed on her dream path while she spiraled. It's not survivor's guilt exactly, but something close. She wanted this life so badly and I ended up with it. Part of me thinks she would have hated it anyway because success doesn't fix resentment. Update 4. I did not expect to ever write this, but I think this will be the final chapter in what has honestly been the strangest and most exhausting friendship breakup of my life. It's been about a year since everything went down, the ghosting, the awkward conference room reveal, the sabotage, HR, her firing, the smear campaign, the awkward text. A year is a long time, and I thought by now everything would have faded into the background. For the most part, it has, but recently something happened that gave me a weird kind of closure. And I wanted to share it because so many of you followed this mess from the beginning. After I cut contact with Elle completely, I focused on my career. The project she tried to derail ended up being a success. And it opened doors for me internally. I got promoted, took on a bigger team, and started to really settle into the company. My day-to-day became less about her and more about my own growth. Work became just work again, not a battlefield. Socially, the fallout lingered. Some mutual friends stayed in her camp, some stayed with me, some floated away from both of us. I stopped trying to control the narrative. At one point, I deleted all our old photos from social media. Not out of spite, but because looking at them felt like keeping a ghost in my house. After a while, people stopped asking about her. The silence was its own kind of healing. Then, a few months ago, I ran into her unexpectedly, not at work, she doesn't work in the industry anymore, but at a wedding of a mutual friend. I hadn't seen her in person since the day she left the company. When I spotted her across the room, my stomach did that old nervous flip. She looked different, tired maybe, smaller somehow, like she'd been carrying too much weight. I expected her to ignore me, but instead she walked right up and hugged me. It was awkward. I froze at first, but then I let it happen. She said nothing, just squeezed me hard and then stepped back. For the rest of the night, we did not really talk. We were polite in group conversations, but we did not dive into anything deeper. Still, the hug stuck with me. A week later, she sent me a long message. This time, it was not half apology, half blame. It was just raw. She admitted she had been jealous, bitter, and ashamed. She said she couldn't handle watching me succeed where she had always dreamed of being. She admitted she lashed out, sabotaged, lied, and projected everything onto me. She said losing her job forced her to see how destructive she'd become. and that she had since been in therapy trying to untangle it. Reading it was surreal. For months I had been the villain in her story, and suddenly she was taking full responsibility. She even admitted that calling me draining back when I lost my job was less about me and more about her resentment that I was not funding our friendship anymore. She said it took her a long time to admit she had valued me for what I gave, not just who I was. For the first time in this entire saga, I did not feel defensive or angry. I just felt sad. Sad for the friendship we lost, sad for the years that ended in flames, sad for how far she had to fall before realizing what she'd done. I did not respond right away. I let it sit. Eventually, I wrote back something simple, that I appreciated her message, that I believed her when she said she was working on herself, and that I genuinely wished her the best. I also told her I did not think rebuilding our friendship was possible, not after everything, but that I hope she found peace. She did not push, she just said thank you and left it at that. Since then, we haven't spoken again, and weirdly, that feels like the real closure I did not know I needed. Not reconciliation, not going back to how things were, but just acknowledgement. For so long, I felt like I was screaming into the void, being painted as the villain without a chance to defend myself. Hearing her finally admit the truth did not fix the past, but it let me set it down. The final twist? A mutual friend later told me Elle had completely changed her career path. She's not chasing the dream company anymore. She left the industry altogether and is working in something totally different, non-profit work. Apparently she's happier, less bitter, more grounded. I hope that's true. So this is it. No more updates, no dramatic reunion, no lifelong feud. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.